Welcome home. We are WNST, AM 1570, Taos, Baltimore. We are Baltimore positive. I am positively wearing my Curio Wellness orange Baltimore bird motif because it is our 27th anniversary. We've been celebrating all week long. If you tuned in on Monday, playing some just old stories about how we started. We're proud of our heritage and everything we do. And we're going to take the show out on the road. And what I'm going to share this month, we've done crab cakes and places and adventures and people, which I'm still going to be doing all month long, and some driving along the state. It's so beautiful to drive through Maryland this time of year. But I'm going to have some Maryland lottery scratch offs. I got some pressure lucks and some lucky seven doublers. There's a rumor spread by Executive Director John Martin right on these airways that the Raven scratch offs are coming soon. There's also a great art competition if you love Maryland motif or know artist in your life that could win a lot of money. But I'm going to be back and forth doing the crab cake tour, of course, conversations and all of that. But my favorite places to eat, my favorite things to eat, some of them a little off the beaten path, most of them very inexpensive. Not so bougie like my Thursday adventures over at Beaumont with the fried lobster. That'll be that, and I'm going to do a crab imperial later on in the month. That's a little bit more royal than, let's say, a snowball without marshmallow, or where to get proper chocolate chip cookies, or where to get a Philly pretzel, which is how we're going to start the adventure on Tuesday as the countdown begins. We'll be at Beaumont on Thursday, all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery and our friends at Curio Wellness. Big appreciation to everybody who's been with us all of these years. I've been putting up some fun nostalgia, but nothing better than having, no offense to Luke coming on right now and talking baseball about a last place team. Not, it was even better than the bananas were for me over the weekend. Was Kwame, who is a rapper, hip hop artist going into the Hip Hop Museum Hall of Fame, not the Oriole Hall of Fame like Adam Jones, who I saw speak 2 weeks ago with Mike Tisch and my friends over at the Connects event up here in Cockeysville. But going into the Hall of Fame, he wrote the Nasty theme song. So a little promotion, a little plug there for something a little off the beaten path because, Luke, I was at Costas maybe 2 weeks ago in Timonium, and Paul Manna, who is the local promoter who does the Trifecta Food Truck Festival. We share a birthday together. He promotes all the shows at the Record Theaters. He's a concert promoter, but he's a big music fan. He's a great guy. We have similar friends and circles, and his friends came in, and they're friends of mine. And his wife came over, and I really don't know his wife. And she came over to me, and she said, "Do you wanna get nasty?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, this is a 50-year-old woman singing my theme song. Like what?" She's like, "My mother loved your show. My mother loved your theme song." And I'm like, "Wasn't my theme song. It was a guy named Kwame that I've never met. I don't know anything about him." And then he came to Baltimore 2.5 weeks ago for a project with my old Ravens friend, Kenny Abrams, who at one point had Chad Steele's job. 25 years ago when the Ravens won the first Super Bowl. Kenny Abrams was on their staff. Wonderful man, Kenny Abrams. We're friends on Facebook. And he was showing Kwame rapping, and Kwame's going in the Hip Hop Museum Hall of Fame in Washington, D.C. And my friend Karen Sagel's been trying to get Master G from Sugar Hill Gang on. I know this is like talking, Peyton Manning's offense, like Omaha to you. But Kwame came on, and I know you know the Nasty theme song, so you know how thrilled I was
Yeah.
to actually have the artist on. What a great guy, and what a great story about that song and his career. And I'm having a good week. I'm trying to enjoy this exhale before the kids go back to school. Football starts becoming the body clock thing and all of that. But I really did want for better baseball. And the bananas thing over the weekend, uh, my wife and I watched it on TV. I mean, we gave it 45 minutes. I saw Adam Jones come out under the cape, and like, we're kind of pissing ourselves with laughter in some
Hmm.
sort of Nickelodeon way. But like when they started calling them the Nanners, I, I I'm not in on the joke. I mean, I don't get it. I tried to have the fellow who Jesse Cole, who's the entrepreneur. I'd love to have him on. I'd like to talk about it because like whatever they did over the weekend, the Orioles aren't doing. I don't know what to say. Just getting people
Oh,
excited, and that's
I
like,
I think it's apples to oranges though. If the Savannah Bananas became the Baltimore Bananas and they were here for 81 games, they're not selling out the ballpark every night. But it's like a concert. It's like
Taylor
it's an
Swift.
act. It's the Harlem Globetrotters. It's I don't know. Like I was even trying to figure out how to contextualize this. Is this
Dude,
amateur
Vince
wrestling
McMahon
versus
couldn't
professional
sell
wrestling?
this many tickets at Camden Yards.
I mean, it's
Like, Vince McMahon would never have tried to
it's
sell
popular.
48,000 tickets.
I mean, it's popular. I mean, it is. It's they have found a business model. They have found a way to market something that is baseball, but not really baseball. And I don't know if it's not exactly like the Harlem Globetrotters because I mean they're playing a real game. It's just a different kind of game, right? I mean, they're still competing. They lose games, but it's something that I think has appeal for families. I think, I had people over the weekend reach out to me who aren't really not like an Orioles thing. They're just not big baseball fans in general in the way that they follow it religiously or anything like that. But they reached out to me. They're like, "Hey, are you down at the Bananas game? Like this, I'm watching this on TV and it's
Well, they
really
think of you
fun."
as a baseball
Sure.
guy, and they think of
Sure.
me as a
So,
baseball guy. So, like, how can I not love it? I don't know. I mean, and it's not a get off my lawn thing. It's just sort of like there's a million things to be interested in, and I guess I really was. I mean, honest to God, I was interested in the Harlem Globetrotters. I was obsessed with them
yeah.
when I was a kid. My parents took me down. I got a program. I lost a balloon that went to the ceiling that had helium on it at a
Hmm.
Harlem Globetrotters game, and I cried when I was 5. I mean, Rodney Allen Rippey, like all of that, like Meadowlark, all about the 70s, man. Like, I get that part of it. It's just bizarre to me, and I don't get it. And I don't know
Well,
why I didn't want to be down there this weekend, but I didn't. I didn't. And my wife's way goofier than me, as you know, like with her sense of humor and what makes her laugh and
yeah.
what she would think is funnier. And we sat here and we watched it a little bit, and but we didn't want to go down Saturday night, and certainly didn't want to pay Elton John prices, you know what I mean, to
Right.
go. That's all.
Well, and that's you're maybe not today, but for the duration of time I've known you, you're a big concert goer, right?
I'm going to one
Dude,
tonight.
I could count on two hands legitimate concerts that I've been to in my life and probably have a couple fingers left over,
I'm going
right?
to drive two and a
So,
half hours
so
tonight to go to a concert,
that's
right?
not to
Yeah,
say that I don't like music, but that
right.
going to concerts is not really my thing, right? Whereas I go to pro wrestling shows, right? And the Savannah Bananas are almost pro wrestling to the Orioles being amateur Greco-Roman style wrestling, right? I mean, I don't know. Like I'm trying to
Hey, that's pretty
contextualize.
good. That's
I don't know.
really
Like I'm
good.
trying to find out because I think the Harlem Globetrotters comparison is an easy one, but that's very staged, right? Whereas this is a bit like the Bananas will lose some games, right? They compete against other teams who are trying, right? So I don't know. Like
Well, he's
it's
really trying to create a league, right?
yeah. I mean, so I think it's fun. I think it's something to not like. I don't think there's anything incredibly deep about the fact that they sold out 2 dates with months in advance to sell tickets. That's a very much a novelty compared to the Orioles or any team in any
And
market.
dude, but here's the thing. They're going to all come back next summer when they do it
They
again.
will, but it's once. I mean, okay. If the Orioles only had 10 home dates a year, they'd probably do way better
I
on
just
a
think they're
yeah.
printing money when tickets are
Sure.
150
I
bucks and people are willing to pay it and go and see it, and they're not willing to pay $15. Let's get back to
sure.
baseball, to real
I
baseball
just don't
here.
think it's
That's
I
the
just don't
part of it that there's the disconnect, is how are those people not engaged enough to want to come to an Oriole playoff game?
I
That
guess.
needs to piece together in some way. And I don't mean for a last place team. I mean what we saw here last. I got a lot of things to compare this to now,
Yeah.
and I got a lot of anchors about poor ownership, I had Michael Buchdahl on this week, my friend who was a part of the Capitals 40 years ago, but he's a Philadelphia lawyer. He's a big sports fan. He's a smart guy, really knows how the sausage is made in sports, really supports the Eagles and the Phillies with his kid and whatnot. We had a great because the Orioles are playing the Phillies this week, and we can get onto the field about all that, but what Philadelphia has tried to embrace beyond Richie Ashburn or Michael Jack Schmidt or any of that stuff, it, it's a real thing there at this point, as was a parade on their football team side. But trying to piece together Baltimore baseball, the fandom, the ownership, the offseason, the current season, last place, whatever this drudgery of the next 60 days of even you and I having to figure out. I was at Costas and Dundalk eating crabs on Sunday, and I'm in there. People were cheering in the ninth inning when number 41 drove in the run.
Ryan Noda.
Yeah,
Ryan
it
Noda.
was number 41.
Yeah.
And Nick came over. He's like, I'm glad he drove the run in. I don't know who the hell he is, but,
Yeah.
I mean, like literally, and I'm up to here in steamed crabs, and I'm like, all right, it's August, but we're used to this. We had Angelos forever. Last place was nothing, but this isn't like that because people believe in Rubenstein. They got his bobblehead, and he's got a lot of money, and I don't know what point we go back into believing that this can look like what we want it to look like. And until that happens, it might as well be the bananas are more interesting. They're more entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and try to stick up for what's a last place baseball team right now. We all saw what the trade deadline was. They made, and those were the right moves for where they are right now. So I'm not sure, even if they have a great offseason, right? They address whatever they need to address. They spend, doesn't mean they're going to spend like the Dodgers. I mean, let's be realistic at least, but they spend some respectable, reasonable, acceptable level where it's like, all right, they're trying here. They signed this pitcher to a 3-year contract. They traded for this pitcher. They've gotten this bat to address the middle of the order. They added an outfielder to replace Laureano, right? Whatever that looks like, and even if there's some questions about it, but you say, okay, they Mike Elias had the self-awareness to know that he couldn't have another offseason like last offseason. Is that going to be enough alone to really sell hope and tickets to the degree that they're going to want? No, I think it's going to be way more. People are going to want to see this thing in April and May and June next year. And it's going to be like, you got to show me, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Right. I mean, I think there's some of that at work and that's why I think if you're Elias and this baseball operations, you have to go to work. Like it's that simple, right? I'm not sure that like there's not a Shohei Ohtani move to be made, right? I mean, I don't think there's necessarily a move that's going to get everyone back on the bandwagon
Well, I mean, got two
100%.
problems.
Everything's
Getting
fine.
people on the bandwagon's part of the problem. Just fixing it will
But
get people back, right? If they can make the team
and that's
better,
my point.
that's really hard to do.
Sure, and that's my point. That's where I think you have to, and that's where I look at the moves they made at the trade deadline. And we talked about this, and I don't want to rehash it too much, but it's really a lot of what there is to talk about. Over the weekend, Trevor Rogers was amazing on Friday. No runs scored. Gunnar Henderson hits the big home run on Saturday. And then on Sunday, Ryan Noda has a great moment. And then Keegan Aiken gives up a home run, right? So they didn't swing the bats well enough. They actually pitched well enough to at least win 2 out of 3, if not have a chance to sweep. They didn't swing the bats. But, okay, so I covered the on-field stuff. But you bring it back to the trade deadline and what they did there. And look, the cynical view on that was they didn't really add too many guys that are going to necessarily be able to help them next year. And look, that's valid. At face value, most of these prospects that
Oh,
they
and by the
added,
way, they dealt off 2 that could have helped them next year.
sure,
And Kittredge
sure,
and
and I'll
Baker.
hear that. However, I would also point out, yes, Mike Elias could have targeted guys that are closer to, quote, major league ready, but what's their ceiling, right? Are you going to, if you do that, are you really getting better as an organization? Or is that just a little more inventory that you're going to add to the mix in addition to what you have at the major league level right now? Corbin Martin, Cade Stroud, guys like that, where, hey, maybe over the next 2 months, they'll prove themselves as something to be an option in their bullpen next year when. But the point is they Elias dealt for what he felt was the best value overall. And as I pointed out to you, my working hypothesis, and Elias touched on this in the Zoom that he did on Friday, that some of the one way that some of these lower level prospects that they've acquired can help them is you can then flip them and include them in trades this winter or next year or next off season after that and acquire individuals who can help you now, right? So remains to be seen. Skepticism is warranted. Doubt is warranted. Anger is warranted with how this season is going. Elias flat out apologized to the fan base for what it's worth. He did. I'm not expecting anyone to just say, "Hey, you're good, Mike, no problem." No, he's got to fix it, right? And everyone understands that. I think he understands that.
Well, that's going to take Mr. Rubenstein's money.
That's going to be a big part of it, no question, right? I mean, as I said to you, I mean, we can talk about some trades to be made, and I'm guessing when it's all said and done, when you and I are talking, it's August now, in 7 months, when we're talking about spring training, I'm guessing we're talking about a couple notable trades being made. And maybe that includes someone from their young core. I don't know. As I said to you, I always felt that was more of a over the winter thing if that's going to indeed happen. But no matter how many trades they might make, yeah, you're going to have to spend some money. And money came off the books, right? I mean, I will point out, and this was an encouraging sign at face value in and of itself. They did include some money in a couple of these trades that they sent to other teams to kind of sweeten the prospect returns. So that was good to see. Now that doesn't equate to the kind of money that it's going to take to have a payroll that's, I don't know, top 12 in baseball, whatever it is. I've kind of said to you in a big picture sense, I've kind of looked at where the St. Louis Cardinals have been financially as something that if the Orioles build and do this right and sustain it, that the Cardinals have been anywhere from, I don't know, at their high water mark, maybe 8th in payroll. And but there's some years that they might be 14th or 15th, right? They've kind of hung out in that fringe top third to middle of the pack for payroll.
Well, the Orioles have nothing on their payroll next year.
Sure, and that's the thing. So the idea is go out and spend, right? I mean, we talked about it this past offseason. They spent money. Now, it wasn't money that they committed years ahead of time, but for the 2025 payroll, they spent money. The question was, did they spend it wisely? And I think when you look at that, at large, like looking at the whole picture, they didn't spend most of it particularly wisely, right? I mean, beginning with the Tyler O'Neill deal and kind of going on down. I mean, Charlie Morton pitched really well for the Tigers on Sunday night, but we also know that deal was a disaster the first 6 weeks, and they never really recovered as a result. But they're going to have to, this is going to have to be as aggressive. I don't mean reckless, but aggressive and as multi-pronged of an attack as Mike Elias has had in an offseason. I mean, the urgency has to be there.
So voila, we can be a contender next year.
And look, and I will also say this, and I'll go, and I'm going to reiterate this point over and over and over. It's still, a lot of this still has to fall back on the young core. This was all built around them. This doesn't work. I don't care how much money you spend. If the young core doesn't take a step forward, and some of these guys, frankly, need to take 2 steps forward.
Well, Rodriguez and Bradish were a part of that 101 wins,
sure.
And they were just pulled out.
And they've barely had them, right?
And then, Burns was around for 5 minutes to hold them through, and he was the best of the whole bunch, and he's hurt. So, it's an industry issue. I talked to Maury Brown about that this week, and Robbie Ince Mikowski also came on, longtime baseball insider, just talking about arms. It keeps coming back to that for Elias, for the organization, for the Yankees, for the Dodgers, for teams that spend money, or for teams, and I had Leo Mazzoni on here for an hour, if you heard that. Amazing. Who better to talk to than him about keeping arms healthy and guys being able to go out and pitch every 5th day.
Yeah, I think where you are starting to see a shift, and I even acknowledged this beforehand. If you go back and look at the 2023 draft, it was right around then, the Orioles at that point did start drafting more pitching. Now, it wasn't the first few rounds of the draft, but if you looked at the volume of pitchers they were adding at that point compared to the 2021 draft, for example, they were starting to do that. So I think they started to recognize that. But look at the trade deadline. Look how many of those players they acquired were pitchers. I mean, it was the overwhelming majority of it. So that's not to say they're all going to pan out, but You need numbers. You need volume, right? Pitching is an attrition game at this point because no one can figure out how to keep these guys healthy. So you better have as many as possible. And that needs to be across the board, right? Okay. Doesn't necessarily mean that you need to sign guys to $150 million contracts. Philosophically, I've said all along, I'm not really interested in that. But you can't just have 1 year deals, right? You can't just draft guys in the sixth round and later and sign the Albert Suarez's of the world and think that that alone is going to be enough. It has to be all of that. And yes, you do need to take some risk. Doesn't mean you have to sign someone to a $200 million deal, but you might need to sign someone to a 3 year, $75 million deal where you'd say, okay, that's not a true bona fide number one ace, but that might be our ace, and he's a legit number two pitcher on most teams, right? So, we're going to see how that plays out. And until Mike Elias proves otherwise, skepticism's absolutely warranted. I'm not going to sit here and say that everything's fine. It's not.
Well, I
So,
think, and by the way, you can find Luke at Baltimore Luke. If you just joined us on the radio, we're jibber jabbering here in the middle of my 27th anniversary about the Orioles who take on the Phillies this week. Then Sacramento comes to town. Nobody wants to sign there. Everybody I talk to smart about the game talks about the work stoppage next
yeah,
year and what that's going to do to labor in the offseason. That Rubenstein's new to the party, and that Rob Manfred's doing a tour, going around getting yelled at. Max Scherzer waiting to yell at him after Bryce Harper yelled at him. I don't know that anybody in Baltimore, now that Laureano's gone and Corbin Burns and some of the veteran dudes aren't even around to yell at him. The catcher from last year with the face thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who speaks up about all of that, but dude, bake that into this, that the built-in excuse is, well, this isn't the off
yeah,
season. We're going to spend money because we're holding the line on labor because of the players and Marvin Miller and Donald Fear, and the ghost of Kurt Flood's wife is speaking out this week. That's where we are in their labor negotiations, and I think that that's going to take a front seat in this from a bunch of. Let me give you a little wrestling reference here because I did we got to talk about Hulk Hogan and the Superstar Graham thing. I mean, we might even do that in this segment. So write that down so you don't forget. Pencil neck geeks that are out there, pushing lawyers that are running the game and the labor war that David Rubenstein signed up for that he feels unaware of or unschooled on in some way to be conversant about it
yeah,
publicly. And Rob Manfred's out trying to bust the union. I don't even know what they want. Like, if they all got in a room and came out and said, what would make it great? Forget about all of us. What would make the system great? I don't even know what that is at this point because when I talk to the smartest people about it, the Dodgers and Yankees are so far from the A's and the Rays that figuring that part of it out. And I don't know how much money will be spent in the market in this environment and where it's about to become a war. I mean, it's always been a war. I
right.
mean, go back to Messerschmitt, go back to Kurt Flood. But that definitely factors into what this offseason looks like, what labor looks like in the offseason for everyone, and just how naive Rubenstein is and whether he's going to bring some real people in here, whether Elias might get fired the day after the season ends, because that's still possible. I mean, and Buck Showalter's going to take over. So who knows?
All right.
Who knows? But I just, from the fans' perspective, if Elias were to sit with me over a coffee off the record and I say, dude, just give me a summary on how you're going to fix this. Like, tell me what your perfect plan is in the off season. Let's pretend there's not a labor problem. Let's pretend Moneybags has all the money in the world. Let's pretend you can win every bid. Let's just pretend you have enough money to win every player you want to win. Who are the three players? Where are they? What do you need? Who are the two top pitchers you're going to go after? The relief pitcher you're going to need because you can't count on Batiste at this point, even though it's nice. What's a perfect plan so that on April 3rd we have three credible frontline starters in addition to Dean Kramer, in addition to whatever like that we're going to be able to put this team together and have the confidence that we can win 100 games next year.
Oh, I mean, I haven't looked at what the free agent list is going to look like. I'm covering training camp, all of that. So I'm not going to sit here and try to talk my way through that.
Well,
I
he's
mean,
probably in his mind
but
got trades. This guy's going to be available on the
sure.
last end of a deal.
But
Like he thinks. I mean, he's a deep thinker. I'm not
but
saying he's a
but I
dummy.
also think some of this is also you do have to look at within. I mean, they've had what, 26 guys on the IL this year. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't have some introspective work to do on your strength and training. What's going on with your training staff? What's going on with your strength and conditioning? Is there something that you have missed? Is there something you need to add? Is there something that needs to be changed? Because right off the bat, if this team had stayed healthier this year, I'm not saying they'd be on their way to winning the division, because there were deficiencies on this roster. There's no doubt.
I think we'd
But
like to see what that would look
but
like,
that's a massive part
right?
of this. We
Yeah.
have to acknowledge that's a massive part of this. Again, next man up becomes a T-shirt slogan at some point. Now that said, again, what caused all that? And I don't want to hear it was all bad luck. Yes, there is injury luck. Yes, their injuries are inevitable. But we've also seen the Ravens are a good example of this. They did a lot of work the last few years to try to curtail their injuries, and you know, Isaiah Likely and Ardarius Washington aside, and maybe I'm giving them a major jinx right now. I mean, not
And
that
they
I
had
really
car
believe,
crashes in
but
two cases last year,
but the
right?
point is there are things you can do to address soft tissue injuries, things of that nature to curtail that. Not eliminate, but to mitigate those types of things. And I think they absolutely, if they aren't already doing work on that, shame on them, because that's a major part of their story this year. But yes, they need more pitching. There's no question about that. You need some guys that are coming back from injuries to stay healthy. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this because you mentioned Grayson Rodriguez in passing. We did get an update on him on Friday from Mike Elias. He most likely is going to have elbow surgery. However, it is not UCL reconstruction surgery. He has bone chips, little bits of bone, whatever, that it sounds like they're going to remove that from his elbow, and that's caused some issues. Now, first question right off the bat is, well, what about the lat strains that he's had 3 of the last 4 years that have cost him so much time? That's a fair question. Now, I will say with any pitcher, the kinetic chain of going all the way from really forearm, elbow, biceps, triceps, shoulder, lat, that kinetic chain, you can have an issue somewhere in that kinetic chain and it can cause problems elsewhere. I'm not saying that some bone chips or whatever it is, a bone spur, has caused all of his issues, but is it something that can help him clean up his mechanics and keep himself healthier that way? Maybe. So, but that's what we're looking at. Obviously, he would miss the rest of this season. The timeline for that kind of a surgery would have him back for spring training. Am I sitting here trying to sell you on their offseason or on 2026 based off of that? No. I think you have to operate with Grayson Rodriguez off to the side right now, right? I mean, to the point where you're saying, okay, if he's there, then yeah, he's in my starting five because we know he's that talented, but I can't build my rotation with the assumption that he's going to be healthy. That's the problem they ran into this past year. Not that he was one of the five. There was no faulty thinking in that. The faulty thinking was he's going to be my ace, right? He's going to be my number one or my number two, and that was the faulty thinking based on what recent history had been for him. So that's the update on Grayson Rodriguez, right? I mean, we're going to see what Bradish statistically didn't look great in his rehab start on Sunday. From what I understand, the stuff looked okay. He felt okay. I think, kind of got ambushed with some bad luck early in the start, and he never really recovered statistically speaking. But he's going to get a few more rehab starts. We're going to see him most likely in late August.
I
Same
need
with
him right
Tyler
in
Wells.
April. I don't need him
Yeah.
right in September.
I mean, well, but you do want to see him, assuming there are no hiccups here, right? Assuming nothing physically that's a concern or anything like that. Him making 4 starts at the end of the year would be great in
Well, if he's
terms of
physically doing it every night, he's capable, right? I
right.
mean,
But you want to see that. And let me be clear, that's not me saying that he's going to throw 110 pitches in those starts.
but if it's
But
August 4th and he's sound enough to be throwing at minor league unsuccessfully, whatever it is,
yeah,
but throwing without pain at this point, it is not
it's a good
it's
sign.
not outrageous to think he'll pitch in the big leagues before Lamar will play the Bills.
Yeah, and typically, a minor league rehab assignment is 30 days, right? Unless you have something where you shut someone down, they have a setback, whatever. So you look at the timeline, it does kind of check out that he would return to the majors, I don't know, August
There's
26th,
no
something like that.
rush
Yeah,
for
sure,
him,
sure.
right?
And there's
Yeah.
not. But like I said, ideally, you would like to see him make 3 or 4 starts because that can help you make a more informed decision about, okay, where is he in relation to a rotation?
Well, he's also going to come up and pitch in the pennant race for some nights where like it's real competitive.
Sure,
Like, from the other side where you don't
sure.
want him coming up and looking like Jackson Holiday did last year with the bat.
No,
I don't
well,
want him see him go 1 2/3, 7 runs,
no, of course not.
3 walks, just getting hit hard.
Well,
That wouldn't be good either. And that's
it,
where he is right now, right? Like right
well,
now, he's not ready for that.
well, he's not ready for that just from a physical standpoint because I mean he's not built up. I mean they're not having him.
Yeah, he's
You
not
know,
going to go
he
3 innings, right?
yeah he's not making. I mean I think he lasted. I
25 pitches.
I'm pulling it up right now because I was at Ravens practice as this was happening, so it's not like I was following it intently. But yeah, his of course I pulled up Baseball Reference and it's not posted yet. Great,
Fair
but the
enough.
point is with that he's still ramping up, right? He threw 37 pitches in his first start at Aberdeen, and that was July 24th. He threw 38 pitches at Chesapeake, Double A, the Bay Sox. So he moved up to Norfolk, and I think his pitch count was a little bit higher. I feel like I want to say he got into the 40s.
Okay.
But
So then it's
so that's what
50,
we're
then it's
talking.
60, then
Yeah, I
it's
mean that's what
right.
we're
Okay.
talking about. We're still, I mean, there's a progression here, right?
Second
So
week of spring training for him.
yeah, and I don't. Again, the results are secondary right now. It's much more. How are you feeling? How's the stuff look? How's the velocity? And I don't mean like, oh, you're trying to throw as hard as you possibly can, but if he's throwing 87, then like that's a red flag too, right? Are you healthy? Like, are you strong enough? All that. So the point is they're in no rush with him, and they shouldn't be.
Dude, let me
But
be flippant real quick and just say that's the thing about the Tommy John thing. They're so good at it that they have a whole regimen for how to get back the best, the quickest. They've got plenty of experience bringing guys back
sure,
from Tommy John. So he's on a track. In the same way, by the time my wife got leukemia, they knew how to treat it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Not easy, awful, terrible, long road, setbacks, all of that stuff. But there's a protocol. Protocol
yeah.
would be the word. And he is along the protocol and the arc of where we saw Batista a couple weeks ago, where we saw John Means at one time for 1 minute, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you hope that it goes better than John Means went, right? I mean, John Means, it never really felt right, even when he came back, and obviously it led to another surgery. Uh, I have it now. Bradish, he actually threw 57 pitches on Sunday. Now gave up gave up 5 earned runs, and it gave up 7 runs overall, 5 earned. So that tells you the defense let him down a little bit. But it sounded like the stuff, the velocity was okay and all that. So it is what it is, right? He struck out 3, walked 1, gave up a home run. But again, going back to our bigger point here, I mean, you're evaluating, right? You're continuing to evaluate Trevor Rogers, who was incredible on Friday, right? I mean, that's against the Cubs lineup that, I mean, go look at what they've done this year. I mean, the Cubs are one of the very best teams in the National League. I mean, that was impressive. That was really good to see. It's a shame, it's criminal that the Orioles didn't score him any runs on Friday because he pitched as well as you could possibly expect someone to pitch. Is he going to continue to have a 1.5 ERA? No, of course not. But he's more and more looking like someone that I'm not going to sit here and say he's definitely my ace next year, but he's looking like someone who could be in the top half of my rotation, and that's good to see, right? So at the very least, he's absolutely looking like one of my 5, right? And that right now, that's kind of where you're working with these guys right now. You're looking at this. The only, assuming no new injuries, which is never an assumption you can make, but that's all you can go off of. There's only one absolute known at this point, I feel like, for the Orioles rotation. Right now, if the season ended today and you were looking towards opening day next year, Dean Kramer would be one of my 5. I mean, that feels like the only thing that feels like close to a sure thing. Rogers is
I
rapidly
was gonna
approaching
say,
that.
man, you're not. You're
Well,
the
because I'm still
days of
talking.
being tough on Trevor Rogers. These are the
No,
times to be like
but it's because
hopeful
it's
about him.
but oh, I'm very hopeful, but it's been 2 months, right? We've also seen the Josh Towers of the world look good for a month or two, and then then they
Well,
turn
this
back
guy
into a
had it at
pumpkin.
one. He was an
Sure,
all-star. I
sure.
mean, this
And
isn't
and, and again, I
as flashy as
sure. Well, the stats, his stats being what they are today, meaning a 1.5, that's really flashy and fluky. But when you drill down and look at it, he's still pitching very well, right? He, I would say, based on the stuff, based on looking at some of the, StatCast, looking at all that data, he's not a 1.5 or 2 or even a 2.5 ERA pitcher in terms of I'm trying to project it out, but he's still pitching like a pitcher with a 3 ERA. In terms of okay, he's given up some hard contact, isn't necessarily missing a ton of bats, but you know what he's done really, really well and has been a massive improvement for him beyond some good batted ball luck that he is, yes, benefiting from. His walk rate has gone way down. I mean, don't issue free passes, right? I mean, how many pitchers I mean, Daniel Cabrera would be in the Orioles Hall of Fame if he didn't walk guys, right? I mean, that's how talented of an arm he had, but he walked a batter per inning.
I saw Jeff Ballard do things, and this is in the vicinity of Jeff Ballard right now. That's where I'm
Yeah,
going to put it.
yeah, but Jeff Ballard, it was a year or two, and then Jeff Ballard,
Well, that's why I'm saying
yeah,
that. But you're, I think if you're putting the rotation together next year and he's part of it, I'll
oh,
buy that.
sure, I'm okay with. And let me be clear, I was just kind of going off of cutting off and not knowing what the next 2 months hold, right? I mean,
I'm not going with Bradish or Rodriguez right now.
Bradish, if assuming Bradish's rehab continues to go on track and he makes 4 starts, Bradish is in my 5.
You're a very optimistic post
No,
Tommy
I'm
John
not.
guy. You
No,
just are.
no, you don't pay close enough attention then, because guys, the success rate for Tommy John is very high. Now that doesn't mean I'm saying Kyle Bradish is going to be exactly what he was before the injury, but
He'll be
this is
good
not.
enough. He could be Dean
This
Kramer.
isn't like Tommy John isn't like what surgery was for Tommy John, where it was totally experimental. I have every confidence that, assuming that there's no like that we find out like this isn't a John Mean situation, that he'll be one of their 5. That doesn't mean it doesn't mean I'm saying he should be their opening day starter. It doesn't mean they don't need an ace. It doesn't mean they don't need to add at least 2 legitimate major league starting pitchers. I'm just saying, assuming he continues on this track of where he is right now, that it's looking like, based on the calendar, he's going to have a chance to make 3 or 4 starts at the major league level before the year is out. Assuming that looks normal, assuming he's healthy, then yeah, I'm okay with saying Kyle Bradish is in my rotation next year. And I don't think that's pie in the sky. I think that's realistic. Now, I'd like it to be that you're looking at him as your 3, 4, or 5 rather than your 1 or 2. I think that would be irresponsible to assume he's the 1 or the 2. I'm just, and I'm picking on you a little bit, but Tommy
All
John.
of this will wash out in September
Oh,
as to
sure.
whether what he
And
looks
look,
like.
and look, if
I
he,
will feel differently about this October
and
1st
that's
if I
fine.
see him
And look,
pitch.
Tony Mansolino could say in Philadelphia this week that Kyle Bradish woke up with a sore elbow. And you know what? Then I'll say you were right, Nestor. I was wrong, right? But I'm going off of data that, I mean, look around baseball at all the pitchers that you
Sure.
see who have had Tommy John surgery, including some of the very best in baseball have had Tommy John surgery. Some of these guys have had it more than once. Now, the guys who've had multiple UCL surgeries, that's when the return rate really starts to not look so hot in terms of getting back, in terms of being what they once were. So that I will fully acknowledge and give you, no question about
Well, you're
that.
out watching Keaton Mitchell, and we know how fast he was, and we're all wondering how
Yeah.
fast he's going to be after a
He
surgery,
looks
right?
fat. He looks faster this year than he looked last year. Am I ready to say he looks as fast and as perfect? I don't. Perfect is the wrong
I'm not
term.
as fast as I was
Optimal.
2 years ago.
Yeah. Does he look as optimal as he did 2 years ago? Well, I assume we're going to see him in some of these preseason games. I think he's going to get some run. I don't think he's going to play necessarily 60 minutes, but he'll play some. But that for the Orioles, these next 2 months are evaluation, right? I mean, we're going to see Dylan Beavers. We're going to see Basayo. I mean, Elias didn't guarantee it, but all but confirmed, yes, we're going to see those guys at some point here in the coming weeks. And in the meantime, on the pitching side, especially that bullpen right now, where I think it would be a great contest right now to see how many Orioles relievers someone could name because I don't without without a clue or two, I couldn't even name all of them by memory. You know, when you're talking about Houston Roth and Elvin Rodriguez and Yaramil Geraldo, and I mean it's Dietrich Enns, who they just acquired. He was actually their last deadline acquisition. Pitcher they got who for cash. He's actually older, right? I mean, I think Dietrich Enns is he's
Great name.
34 years old.
We're
I
getting
mean,
great names. It's like
yeah.
Rio Ruiz. If they can't be good, at least give me good names.
It is funny. I always feel Rio Ruiz is kind of the face of those rebuild years, right? I mean, he was with Houston years
Well,
ago,
I
so
always think
Elias,
Mark Reynolds was the face of the one before that. But yes,
yeah.
yeah. Well,
But yeah, Rio Ruiz is always the guy I think of, so but there's a lot of that going on right now. And that's what was disappointing, disappointing relative to, just 3 days of baseball. Not there's no disappointment left, right? That's all tapped out at this point. Now it's just you're playing out the string and trying to evaluate. But they actually got some decently pitched games over the weekend. That's why you look at it and say, offense, hey, young core, hello, young core. It none of this, all this fixing that needs to happen with the pitching and the
need more
roster.
walk-offs from Gunnar.
Man, you need more. And hey, Gunnar doing that, great, bravo. That was great to see that from Gunnar Henderson. But they need more of that from the group. They need more of that from the group. I don't care how much money David Rubenstein ends up telling Mike Elias he can spend. I don't know. I don't care how many moves Mike Elias makes. If the young core doesn't take steps forward, and look, that's not to say that every single guy, Heston Kjerstad might just not be the guy, right? Colton Cowser may turn out to not be it, but like if they continue to have multiple guys where you're saying, oh, this is not looking great. Adley Rutschman doesn't look great for the last calendar year, for example. Then none of this works. All of this was built around the young core. So if this is going to work, yeah, you need to supplement and help these guys and bring in pitching and yeah, no question
You
about
got to
that. But
trade Basayo and Cowser and something else for Paul Skeens.
yeah, I don't think they're trading Basayo, but
Well,
they're
either
but
way.
yeah, I mean, and look, I don't know if it's Paul Skeens, but you got to go acquire somebody,
Can I
right?
turn this into a circus? Because I want to do one thing with you before
Sure,
we leave. Because we could
sure,
do
sure.
baseball all day, and we
Yeah,
tend
I
to
mean,
do
these
that.
are the kind of conversations we're going to be having the rest of the year. Because we'll spend 5 minutes on the actual games of what happened, and then it's the big picture because that's all you can really. It's what they did on the trade deadline was all about the big picture. I mean, that's where they are right now.
I we signed a new sponsorship here this week with GBMC, which is where my brother was born, and it's the community hospital right in the neighborhood where my radio station is in Towson. Now they have wings in all sorts of places, and I'm going to get you a GBMC shirt to wear because I didn't even really think like you're sort of the injury report captain. You know what I mean? And it's not even like injury reports, but like I've got to get. One of the reasons I'm doing this is men's health issues, me getting a checkup, me getting over to seeing my doctor, telling a lot of stories and issues and things like that. After we talked about colonoscopies and different things like that, so I got to get you on that. So GBMC is our newest sponsor, so I'm going to work that with you. But I got to say this: the wrestling thing. It's like sort of a Wayne's World. We're going
Yeah,
to move from baseball to wrestling real quickly
I mean, SummerSlam was
because
this weekend anyway, so go ahead.
you have anything you want to say about SummerSlam or no?
Nah, no. I mean, it was good, but nothing from a historic standpoint that you would interest you. Although John Cena lost the title and he's actually on his retirement tour right now. Although I don't know if it's like
You
a
mean the
Kiss
Today Show
retirement
host,
tour.
that guy?
Today
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, he's always on the Today Show, John
I
Cena.
mean, John's
Muscles?
yeah. You hear he voices a ton of commercials too. I mean, I hear his voice on commercials all the time. It's hilarious. But sorry.
So, you and I got into it about Hulk Hogan, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
found my ticket stub from the first time I saw Hulk wrestle at the Capitol Center. It was the first time I ever went to the Capitol Center.
Mm-hmm.
Seminal moment in my life. Not as good as Kwame's nasty theme song, and you can listen to that here this week, which was a lot of fun too. But I went to the Capitol Center, and Hulk was a heel with classy Freddie Blassie, who I also channeled earlier here with some pencil neck geek comments for the ownership of Major League
The
Baseball.
Hollywood fashion plate. Classy Freddie Blassie. There you
There
go.
was an interview I found on YouTube that was the promo shoot for that match. It was shot March 1st, 1980. The match was March 8th. Backlund and Hogan wrestled at the Spectrum, and there's a lot of video. There's a video of that because they had house video at the Spectrum, and there's pictures. There's a Backlund Hogan picture that was up at the Capitol Center for years that I found that I shared. They're wearing different trunks. That way I know it was a different, but they only wrestled 2 or 3 times. You can look it up, bad guy. And I don't know how this happened and the timing of this, that you and I went after the Hulk Hogan thing and what a scumbag he was and how much he meant to you. And we went through after his death, and it's on my timeline now. We didn't even talk about him selling out the Saharian thing and, what happened on television with um, uh, Superstar Graham that I learned later. But I watched the Superstar Graham Vice, uh a Dark Side of the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's my era, right? I was at the Civic Center the night Superstar Graham pinned Bruno. Last night Bruno held the championship. My parents, I think my mother might have cried that night. That's how much she loved Bruno. And I'm 9 years old. I didn't know Kevin Eck quite yet, at that point, but we were about to get into that period of time. And Superstar Graham was a star for a year and then canned. And then this Dark Side of the Ring, you told me to be very sad. It was his kids, just all of it. I remember when he went to the Orient and came back, and like I remember all of that about Superstar Graham. But the thing that I lost, that I tried to explain to my wife, who was more Hulk Hogan, but doesn't really remember Superstar Graham the way I do. She's a little younger than me, but like
Mm-hmm.
her dad, like didn't get into wrestling, but Cindy Lauper brought her in, and she was in with Hulk Hogan with you, right? And
Yeah.
she's a little older than you. The thing about Superstar Graham that blew my mind, was Hulk Hogan stole his act.
Yeah.
And I sort of
Others did too.
into, well, and they all stole,
I mean,
George is
really,
George, right? Like,
he
yeah.
came 10 years or two, not, not even 10. Honestly, when you look at when Vince Jr. obviously bought from Vince Sr., took the company national, if Superstar Graham had come along 7 years later, he might have been Hulk Hogan. I mean, like you just think about it. I mean, Hogan, okay, he had, obviously he had his original run, wrestled Andre at Shea Stadium. He was the heel. He went off and did Rocky 3. Vince Sr. was ticked about that, like, because Vince Sr. was still very much, hey, kayfabe, we got to protect all that. He didn't want his wrestlers being movie stars, right? I mean, he wanted them selling out the Garden 4 times a month or whatever it was. Um, and so like Hogan like had that whole thing, and but then he came back to WWF, and that was Vince Jr.'s guy, and
But
the rest is
to,
history.
to
But
me,
yeah,
the thing that
Superstar
was
Graham was that
missing
guy.
from the Graham piece would have been what Hulk Hogan's interviews look like as a bad guy in
Yeah,
1980. It was this sullen, dark, tough guy,
yeah.
no talky. He had no on camera anything. And then even like I go back and look at the older AWA, and I've never seen a Hulk Hogan documentary, or nor do
Hmm.
I know that I even care about it, because I cared about Superstar Graham to the point where like you saw how pathetic it all was, and the drugs and what they do to,
Yeah,
like, just all of it, right? Saharian, just all of it. The Phil Donahue show. But the part that was missing for me that connected the dots was the fact that Hogan died. And I went and watched the interview of what Hogan looked like on the set with Freddie Blassie, who did all the talking for him, and how McMahon said basically, watch Superstar Graham
yeah.
and just do what he does. Just do what he does. And when I was in the car with my wife, and she was driving, and we were eating one of these delicious donuts that I'm going to feature as part of my 27 favorite things to eat. I had to go out and make sure it was still good. You got to have 50 donuts in order to make the 27 top 27 list for me this month. But I was explaining to my wife, who didn't know Superstar Graham, to channel him and say, Wiz, let me tell you, brother. Let me tell you, brother, we're coming to Baltimore, brother. And how that became, let me tell you something, McMahon, brother. And like the comparison of that and what Hogan looked like before and was trained up, like no wonder Graham lost his mind watching his act be done. Like it would be like Jerry Coleman taking my act and like literally playing the nasty themes, somebody else doing it and trying that Bobby, whatever his name is, like taking my act and me having to sit and watch it from the outside. Cassie kind of has my act with the Ravens right now. So does Rob Long, but like in a funny way, I never, as an adult, pieced together how screwed up that must have made Superstar Graham and the drugs and the violence and just all of this back hurting, like all of that that goes
Yeah.
into being a wrestler. But that Hulk Hogan really stole his act it's something that I missed at when we talked about Hulk Hogan's act as much as I missed a lot of the more tawdry stuff that he did. I mean, the sex tape part and like all that. We didn't even go through any of that when he died or just the part that he was a stolen act on all of it on top of the Superstar Graham thing that happened right in front of me. And I never acknowledged it until I'm 56 years old and they're both dead.
Who's the nature boy?
Buddy Rogers, baby.
Ric Flair adopted plenty for Buddy Rogers. The strutting, the kind of the style, the nickname, figure four leg lock. Wrestling is that business. I mean, it absolutely is. There's a wrestler right now, LA Knight in WWE, who I would say, and this is simplistic. Obviously, is not exactly the same, but I see elements of The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin in his act. I mean, I really do. Like it's kind of like a
Everybody
blended.
did a Sergeant
Yeah.
Slaughter
So
turn, right? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
anybody
So
that did
so like
military,
I mean
right?
I don't I see it as nothing egregious from Terry Bollea in that I think he was told to do that. And that's kind of how my point is with superstar Billy Graham. Just the shame of it really is that he didn't come along. Like it wasn't like 10 years later when his prime was, because you look at it and think about it, and the Vice special covered it where, look, Bruno was beloved, but there was no pomp and circumstance about Bruno. Bruno, like tough guy, Italian, like everyone
All
loved him,
business. Yeah.
but it was all business. There was no, there's no theme song or anything like that, right? I mean, it was very, but that's what your world champions were. That's why when Graham won, the idea was you have a heel transitional champion, and then Bob Backlund, who was as boring of a baby face as you'll find. I mean, like the Bob Backlund that we saw years later in WWF was way more
Well,
interesting
I
than the
think
Bob.
the old man believed that's how you got the heat
Right.
on the heel.
That's kind of how it was back then.
Make the
But
good guy so friggin' howdy doody or so
yeah,
beloved
I
that the
just
bad guy kicking him in the nuts would bring everybody back for the steel
sure,
cage match.
sure, exactly. So from that standpoint, again, if Superstar Graham, if he came along in the mid 80s rather than the mid 70s, I mean, man, you're talking about a game changer right there. I mean, for what
I'm
he
just saying
was.
for any of those really
Oh
charismatic
yeah.
wrestlers, right?
Well,
Whether it was Dusty Rhodes or Ric Flair or Jake the
yeah,
Snake or
and does and by the way,
Macho Man, that
Hogan.
flamboyance.
I never heard Hogan. I'm
Jesse
not.
the Body Ventura was doing Hulk Hogan first,
Yeah,
right? Yeah,
Jesse Ventura was took Graham elements.
right.
Hogan also talked. He even talked. Dusty Rhodes was so much of an influence of that. Again, Dusty was another one, and Dusty had immense success. But again, if Dusty's prime had come 10 years later, he might have been what Hulk Hogan was for taking the WWF national and all that, right? I mean, because Hogan said when he first started, like he wanted to be Dusty Rhodes. So I mean, that's kind of I heard him give that interview.
Well, I mean, the American Dream became the
Yeah.
American Idol,
So
right?
my point with that is I don't think
Austin
it.
Idol was doing that at the time. Yeah, so
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean,
So like
I get it. They were all
all
trying to be
wrestling,
Billy Graham at
everyone
that
is
time.
Right. And everyone does this. There is rarely, and I say this as someone who's been a wrestling fan for 4 decades now. Like literally, I'm going to be 42 in October. Really started watching wrestling when I was 2. I mean, you can ask my mom. Like I could name all the Orioles and all the wrestlers, right? I mean, that's how it was for 2 and 3-year-old Luke Jones, right? Probably says something about who I am today, but I digress. But that was everyone picks and chooses. Everyone steals a little bit, adapts a little bit, takes from that. I mean, finishing moves. Now, it's gotten more athletic and frankly way more risky now as far as what these guys do from an athletic standpoint and girls. Uh, SummerSlam, you asked me about SummerSlam. The absolute sickest thing I saw in terms of someone taking a bump. That's when think of it as a stunt for people who aren't wrestling people, was Candice LeRae, who was managing one tag team in this big ladder match that they had. It was like 6 different teams involved. She crashed through a ladder, and I kind of held my breath, like, like I put my hands on my head, like, oh my gosh, like, is she okay? So it speaks to what the women do now today. But again, there's all copying. It's cyclical. There's copying. There's never anything that's or rarely is anything really truly original. And yeah, Hulk Hogan, I'm guessing if he were still here in Truth Serum, he'd say, yeah, of course I copied off of Superstar Graham. You see how popular he was in 1977 and 78? I'd be crazy not to. So, and
But
with
in
some of the,
1980, he didn't have that act is the
well,
interesting thing, and he turned that act into a good guy act.
yeah, well, sure. And look, some of that is also go back and look at these wrestlers. I mean, they're performers, right? I mean,
Sure.
that's what they do. Some of my all-time favorite. Go look at a Rock promo from his first year when he was Rocky Maivia. I mean, it makes you want to like hurl. It's so cheesy
Bad
and like,
acting, yeah.
yeah, it's just so bad. And he became one of the greatest talkers of all time. Flair's a great one. If you can go find some really old Flair stuff, he wasn't the great talker that he became. I mean, the guy that you think of as like the epitome of what a cool heel is, he couldn't talk in his earliest years. That's a tough skill. So when you're trying to develop that, of course you're going to copy off the superstar Grahams and the Dusty Rhodes of the world because they're so great at it. I mean, literally today these kids today that are coming up in the business, they're watching old tapes of The Rock or old tapes of Flair or old tapes of Stone Cold Steve Austin. They'd be crazy not to. I mean, that the whole business is not about being the best wrestler. It's not about being the champion or any of that. You know what the business is about? Getting over. That means you're popular. If you're a bad guy, the fans hate you. If
Get
you're a good
heat,
guy,
baby.
the
Get some
fans
heat.
love you. It's all about getting over. If you're over, then the money comes, then the titles come, then the merch comes, all that. So yeah, Superstar Graham was fantastic at that, and Hulk Hogan and probably 50 other guys absolutely stole his act. But that's why, as I said, it's a shame he was ahead of his time. I mean, he absolutely was. And hey, the WWF, if they had kept the title on him longer, I mean, who knows? Maybe they would have gone national more quickly than they did. I don't know. I mean, Vince Senior was obviously part of the old guard, which was like the mafia, and they they all tried to take care of each other, even if they didn't really trust each other. It was very much like they lent out Andre the Giant was lent out elsewhere. They bring in Dusty Rhodes for a run at MSG. I mean, it's a totally different world than what it is today. But yeah, that's you saying that. I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by that at all. And again, you can find numerous other guys that did that, just like the Ultimate Warrior. Elements of him he copied off of Hulk Hogan, right? I mean, it's
Well, and
like
Sting is in that same right. Yeah, I
Sting, no
got you.
question.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
All
it's
right.
fun, but yeah, I mean, it's very much a business of you have these full circle moments where you just kind of see these guys. It's like, oh yeah, you could tell he liked that guy. You could tell he was a big fan of that guy, and it's just it's fun because there are lots of different styles and. But I'm glad you checked that out. This past season of Dark Side of the Ring, I thought the Superstar Graham one was probably the best one out of the season.
Well, I'm waiting on the Billy Joel doc. I did get a chance to watch the Elaine Maxwell piece on Netflix, which was just unbelievable. Just like my guest Barry Levine last week has written a couple books on it. Was unbelievable. I'll just say this on the wrestling thing. I think I've only said this to you one time, and I maybe was even off the air when we were rooming together, chasing football or baseball or something. But when I was like 10 years old, Channel 13, it's either Klaus Wagner or it was Randy Blair, had a write-in kids thing,
Hmm.
write in to meet your hero, meet tell us in 25 words or less why you want to meet your hero. And I wanted to meet Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. And I
You
tell
and
you
many
what, I
others.
went my whole lifetime. I don't think I ever really met Dusty. And I feel like I may have been in a room at one point at like a Hall of Fame or this or that, where he was actually in the room. And I, that would have been a big deal for me had I
Yeah.
ever done it. And I don't know why I didn't do it. I probably had a million opportunities. I mean, Flair and I had real face to face when I was a young reporter. I never met Hogan. Superstar Graham, I never met. I think there was a point where like some of these guys may have called in. Now, like Bruno called in, did the show several times with me,
Hmm.
but Dusty Rhodes to me as a 10-year-old of that I wanted to not Brooks Robinson, not Johnny Unitas, not even Sisto Lescano, although now that I reconsider at that point in my life, Dusty Rhodes was as big a hero to me as Hulk Hogan was to you, right? I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah.
and Dusty to this day has such. I mean, Cody Rhodes, his son, is just won the WWE title back, right?
Former
He won it,
Stardust, right? Yes.
won it. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just and
Or
Dustin.
Gold Dust, Stardust, or
No,
Gold Dust.
Goldust is Dustin, who is
Oh, right.
still wrestling in AEW. Actually,
Okay.
just had a run as their version of the Intercontinental title. Yeah, he just had for a brief time. But the thing about Dusty that was amazing, and because you said it, so I'll give you 30 seconds on Dusty. He did everything. I mean, he was a wrestler, promoter, booked, worked in NXT, which is WWE's developmental. The last years of his life, he was working, training the future stars. Right? I mean, so many of the WWE talent today that's on the younger side, but has been around the last
Even
10 years or
Triple
so.
H too would have that
Yeah.
reputation through
So like
years, right?
right. I mean, Triple H runs the creative for WWE at this point. He is Vince in that way in 2025. But yeah, Dusty just had such an amazing mind for the business. I mean, great in the ring, great talker. I mean, even with his lisp, I mean, that would have been a deterrent for any other superstar. He leaned into it. That was part of the charm of Dusty, right? I mean, his hard times promo is uh,
You're making
one.
me want to go watch a stand back
I mean,
powder
his hard
commercial.
times
Let me tell you
promo.
about pain.
You think about like and this would be fun for me to do just as an exercise sometime as I'm just sitting here with my stream of consciousness going. But I think of the all-time great promos. His Hard Times promo is one of those gold standard ones that any wrestler at any point in their career would dream of cutting a promo along those lines, right? I mean, CM Punk, for him 14 years ago, it was the pipe bomb promo that kind of took him into a new level in WWE. I mean, but Dusty, I mean, he
All I
just
had in my air was Piper's Pit, man.
yeah, Piper was one of the all-time great talkers as well, right? I mean, the Rock. I mean, you go down the list. Flair was amazing. I mean, you go watch those Flair promos from the mid '80s, and it's like, I mean, this guy's it's a
Well,
different.
the managers were the real stars in Mr. McMahon's world doing the talking. Vince McMahon, George the Animal Steel couldn't talk, right?
Oh yeah,
So,
I mean, you had
yeah.
Captain Lou, you had Freddie Blassie, you had the Grand Wizard. I mean, you had that Bobby the Brain comes in a couple years later. I mean, yeah, because that's and you still have a little bit of that, like Paul
Yeah,
Heyman's
stable.
Yeah, Paul Heyman still does some of
Oh,
that.
dude, this is way more fun than last place
Oh, I
baseball, isn't
know.
it?
Exactly, dude. It's so funny because I will have people come up to me like that. They'll listen to us like when we break off on a tangent and talk about wrestling, and they're like shocked that I'm in the wrestling. I always tell, like I've said this to you, like other than my faith and my family, beyond that, there are two things that I've really truly cared about my entire existence from the time I can remember being a little boy till today: baseball and professional wrestling. I mean, football I didn't like until I got a little bit older, and obviously Baltimore didn't have a team till I was 13 years old. So, it's fun. It's fun, and as I get older, I find a lot of aspects of life are more imitate wrestling a little more than we'd like to believe. I think kayfabe is something that is actually pervasive in a lot of ways. But all kidding aside, it is a great form of entertainment, and some of the names that we've spent a few minutes here talking, I mean, it's fun. There's no doubt. And anyone who is anyone in wrestling today, generally speaking, they'll talk about. I mean, Hogan's an easy one, but Dusty Rhodes, Ric Flair, superstar Billy Graham, going back, might be a couple generations in between, but you look at these types, and as much as the athletic part has evolved to something that someone that liked wrestling in the 70s wouldn't even recognize because it's just so much more athletic and risque and all that. I mean, these guys are literally risking breaking their neck multiple times a match in many cases. But it still comes down to
The
entertainment,
athleticism, Vince. The
entertainment, and
athleticism.
are you over? Because you can do all the flips and all that, but if the fans don't care about it, they'll like it for the 5 minutes or the 10 minutes that you're out there, but then they forget about it right away. Dusty, the elbow drop, whatever, he made people love him forever because he was that good. And same with Flair, same with superstar Graham, who, like
Andre
I
didn't
said,
have to say anything.
Andre was just amazing. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm glad you at least brought up Andre because he was truly, as much as everyone talked about Hogan, and yes, Hogan
King.
was
He was the
this
draw.
global star.
Yeah.
Andre at his peak might have been the most popular human being on the face of the earth because he toured in Japan. He toured all over the world. Unlike most of these wrestlers who are mostly United States, North America, maybe they do a tour in Japan every now and then. Andre went everywhere, and he was beloved everywhere.
Well, he was a large man.
He was.
Still, the greatest story ever was Phil
Drinking
Jackman
stories.
drinking beer with Phil. I'm telling you, Phil Jackman went drinking with Andre the Giant, and he lived to tell. Lived a long time. So
I recently heard a story, and this is 30 seconds because I know we're wrapping here, but
is it better than Wade Boggs? No,
Jake, it's along those lines. Jake Roberts was with Andre, and I think they had a flight. No, it was a drive that was only it's like a 2 hour drive, hour and 40 minutes, something like that. And wrestlers being who they were in those days, they're drinking while they were on the road, not condoning that part of it. But Jake Roberts is like, Andre, how much you want? You want a 6-pack, you want 12-pack, whatever. He goes, case. And Jake's like, Andre, we're only going to be on the road for like an hour and 20 minutes, whatever. He goes, oh, 2 cases. He said Andre drank everyone, and Jake drank a 6. Jake, obviously, his story is well documented as far as his issues with substance abuse, drinking, drugs, all that. Jake had a 6-pack. I don't know if he was driving. They may have been flying. I could be. Anyway, point is, Andre drank 2 cases of beer, and Jake said the most amazing thing is he didn't have to use the bathroom.
I was going to say, how many times he peed?
He said, he's like, was his bladder the size of a basketball or something? And so I heard Jake Roberts, and that story I had heard a couple years ago, but it popped up on my timeline again here recently. But yeah, Andre's drinking escapades were the stuff of legend because, well, when you're talking about, a real life giant, he's 500 pounds. He could put away his booze, that's for sure.
Behind the Chesapeake restaurant, there's an alley, and Phil Jackman told me about it. He's Luke. I'm Nestor. We usually talk baseball or football. I promise we will. Appreciate everybody following our 27th anniversary. We're going to be out having some fun. We're going to be at Beaumont on Thursday with our friends from the Maryland Lottery. I'll be giving stuff away all month long, including really good advice on good stuff you should go eat. It's Baltimore Positive. Stay with us.